2025 meeting, which I am calling to order. Under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, this meeting is being recorded. And please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move right into the director's written report. Any questions on that? Okay, we'll move on to your update, Matt.
Okay, we're in flu season now, so we've got some flu clinics scheduled, and thanks to Linda for coordinating these. So the first one is going to be on Monday, September 29th at Edgewater Apartments on Sanford Road from 9 to 11. Thursday, October 2nd at Nookchoke Village from 9 to 11. Monday, October 6th at Edgewater Apartments on Borden Street from 9 to 11. Thursday, October 16th at Village Apartments on Village Way from 9 to 11. Monday, October 20th at the Council on Aging from 9:30 to 11:30, and again at the Council on Aging on Monday, October 27th from 9:30 to 11:30. Flu shots are available starting September 22nd. Please contact the town nurse to schedule an appointment. So on the 22nd of September, they're available for the public or anybody to come in and see Linda to get a flu vaccine. Again, Linda has coordinated some more blood drives with the Red Cross. The next one is Wednesday, September 24th at White's of Westport from 1 to 6. And then Tuesday, November 11th at the Macomb School from 9 to 2. And this we encourage all eligible donors to participate.
Okay. So I just wanted to pick up on the flu vaccines because there have been no change in recommendations, as far as I know, around flu vaccines. Is that correct? Who's eligible and recommendations?
No, there's nothing changed on that
Yeah.
front.
So flu vaccines are still the same. People who need to get them, whether through risk or age, certainly encourage that. The confusion is really around COVID vaccines with the actions of the CDC and what the limiting of eligibility and so on. So the first line, we're waiting to get guidance from DPH, but the first line is to check in with your primary care physician, and they are the ones to give you guidance about the appropriateness of the COVID vaccine for you or any family member. And also just for vulnerable populations, also think about the RSV vaccine this fall. I mean, COVID is still around. It's not as bad as it used to be, obviously, thank goodness. But we still recommend vaccines as a way to minimize your health risks. And they are proven to be very safe. There are some rare vaccine reactions, but overall the risk profile is to the benefit of getting a vaccine. Any other comments or thoughts on that?
No, I'm agree.
Okay.
I think it's more about will the pharmacies provide it, if, I guess, seeing how that plays out.
Right.
What we would do, this is, in that situation, and, will insurance pay for it?
Right.
So
yeah. No, that's one of the big question marks, and I know that CVS is holding off in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
But the state government is also looking at changing regulations so that they can follow guidance from independent experts rather than the CDC, given the turmoil there right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I did read a short blurb about 3 Western states who have essentially creating their own CDC.
Vaccines.
Vaccines.
Washington, Oregon, and California, and I believe the New England states are thinking about
exactly.
doing the
I
same
saw
thing.
that as well.
So stay tuned. But first line is check in with your your own healthcare provider to get answers.
But all your old fogies like me should get your,
Yes, anybody over 65, it is definitely
Well,
recommended.
that would mean me too.
Yes. I managed to avoid COVID for 4 years, so, but I didn't get it, and I didn't want to get it again.
No, we don't want to get it. It's not pleasant.
No. Okay. Moving on to director-approved plans.
Okay, we have a 4-bedroom upgrade on a 62,733 square foot lot at 60 Prospect Street for Jonathan Gertler. And it's been through Concom. We have a 5-bedroom repair on an 84,168 square foot lot on 41 Autumn Drive for John Medeiros. It's also been through Concom. We have a 3-bedroom repair on a 60,900 square foot lot, 294 Pine Hill Road for Tina Flores and Jose Flores Contreras. Also been through Concom. And we have a 4-bedroom new construction on a 2,378 square foot lot on 17 Strawberry Lane for Brian Texera. And this one is pending in Concom at the moment.
Any questions or concerns?
No. So I move that we endorse the director-approved plans for 60 Prospect Street, 41 Autumn Drive, 294 Pine Hill Road, and 17 Strawberry Lane, pending Concom review.
For 17 Strawberry, yeah, okay.
second,
All in favor?
uh,
That's unanimous, thank you. Okay, next is minutes. We had reviewed the August 4th minutes at the last meeting, and they were fine,
Except for
but it
one.
wasn't on the agenda.
Except for one
The
thing.
typo, 2038.
It's 2038 instead of
Yep.
2028 for the opioid fund.
Yep, so I think we're ready for a motion on that one.
I move that we approve the August 4th, 2025 minutes with the edit of the 2028 funds, or the funds, the opioid settlement funds going till 2028 to 2038.
second,
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes of August 4th. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Okay, August 11th. This was our working meeting. Any questions or concerns about that one?
I did not have any.
no, I'm fine,
Okay, so I move that we approve the August 11th, 2025 minutes.
second,
All in favor?
uh,
That's unanimous, thank you. And then next, our August 18th, our last regular meeting. Concerns about that one?
I have none.
I'm fine,
Okay, so I move that we approve the August 18th, 2025 minutes.
second,
All in favor? That's unanimous, thank you. Okay, we can go on to other business. Actually, I should send that over here while you discuss the first agenda item, opioid funds management proposal. Tell us what's going on.
So I wanted to give the board an update on some of the issues going on with the opioid funds management management. The opioid committee formulated a draft of an RFP to begin to get requests for money to provide services in the community to address the opioid and to mitigate the opioid epidemic. In doing so, I presented, it was forwarded to the town administrator, who then proposed that Mr. Armendo could be helping with that. And I suggested back that this wasn't a Board of Health responsibility. He's recommending, he plans on recommending to the select board that the Board of Health manage the funds and have responsibility for the opioid settlement funds. So that is, the Opioid Settlement Fund Advisory Committee was formed by the select board to advise them on how to spend the funds and what would be the best use of the funds within Westport. So that's what we've been working on, and this was the first that I heard that the town manager was proposing that the responsibility come to the Board of Health. Be shifted. So I actually, I just met with him before this meeting to discuss what his concerns are. I'm planning on appearing before the select board on Monday to give them a brief overview of what the committee has done.
Mm-hmm.
And thus, we're at this point of creating an RFP with the idea that we're going to be getting that out in the public and soliciting requests for grants.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so I'm planning on meeting before the select board to do that on Monday. I believe the co-chair, or the vice chair rather, is going to be joining me to do that. And I don't know, Mr. Hartnett didn't suggest that he was going to be saying that in the meeting on Monday, but I know that's in his thoughts, and he said he was going to be meeting with the chair of the select board this evening. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. But the reason why I'm bringing it up, because it may be presented to us or presented as another responsibility for the Board of Health.
Okay. Adding any additional responsibilities to the Board of Health without any resources or support is a no-go, in my opinion. We already are understaffed. We've been asking for additional staff for years, and we can't take on that load without support, is my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's an unfunded mandate.
Well, part of...
It's not a mandate, because we
Yeah.
can choose not to accept the responsibility.
So in that, I've also met with Matt to talk about this, and he had some suggestions. One of the things in the opioid settlement fund is the provision in there in the agreement, the abatement agreement, is administrative costs. And so there is a possibility of using some of the funds to support the administrative process, which could mean time allotted to a person to do some of that work. So it would require some fancy footwork or whatever it would take to make that happen. So there's going to be a certain process, an administrative process, a paperwork process. I'm not sure what would be involved with having someone like Olive, who is spearheaded this, an advisory committee, be involved in a more formal way, in a reimbursement way. But there's money in the funds to do that. And I don't know why the select board wouldn't just use it to hire somebody else to assist with it. But it is something for the reason why it's on discussion is for us to kind of talk about what our stance is on that. Should we use the money to support the administrative running of the settlement funds and then move forward with it or not, if it's presented to us? Because I think that, I don't know that it's going to be presented to us, but I do know that this is what Mr. Hartnett was going to recommend to the select board.
So refresh my memory, when this whole idea of the task force came up, the select board was responsible for this. What they were doing was probably nothing, essentially. And so, but when the select board agreed to set up the advisory committee, what were the parameters, what were the expectations for, the kind of administrative management of the disbursement of funds, however, knowing that you were an advisory committee to give to the select board.
Well, that's what I said to Mr. Hartnett. If the advisory committee wasn't here and doing what we're doing, what would the select board do?
Yeah.
What would the town do with the funds? So, as the chair of the advisory committee, our job is to advise the select board. We don't have control over the purse strings. We weren't assuming necessarily responsibility for oversight of whatever grants were awarded. That's not to say that the committee is not willing to do some of that. But if this committee hadn't been formed, which is what I'm also going to present if should it come up. I don't know that he's going to present it in this select board meeting, but that, what would this select board have done had not this committee been formed to advise them on what to do? And part of the work we've been doing is getting input. It's the first thing on the abatement agreement, getting community input. So that's what we've been working on. We've had professional organizations come in and speak to us, educate us about the different programs that are around the area, how we can work with those programs, how can we bridge it, what finances could bridge treatment access for people who are struggling. So we've been doing a lot of that, and then came to let's formulate an RFP. So the RFP isn't perfect, but it was a really good start, and Dr. Dorsky is the one who pulled it together, and then we've been tweaking it and meeting, and we met yesterday remotely to approve what we have to present to the select board. So, but it's a good question. If the advisory committee was not in existence, what would the select board be doing?
And what is the position of the advisory committee on this?
It's
Are they aware?
They're aware. I told them we had. I said, we're not voting on anything. I'm just letting you know what's happening. And that I was meeting with Jim today. That here is what's being suggested. That I met with Matt. Matt has an idea of how we might be able to make it work, but again, the committee there's a couple of mixed responses to it.
Okay.
And so far 3 of the people on the committee that I've spoken to have been all for it. That especially if it was Olive, who has Olive. But there was one that was adamantly against it. So we have to find out, how to. It doesn't have to be unanimous,
right?
But certainly, because we look at spending administrative funds, and they've given me the responsibility now. They've said, however, I want to spend the funds that we have, which was $5,000, which part of it was to pay for Mr. Barbosa to come and do minutes for us and do it officially, because I can't do minutes and run a meeting. It's very hard to do. And so the committee then voted at a remote meeting to give me full control over how the money, that $5,000 is spent.
Okay.
So, but that's going to be more than $5,000, and so it might be a vote with the committee about. Well, actually, it would have to go to the select board if it wasn't a
Right.
Board of Health responsibility. I think if the Board of Health agreed to take it on, and the select board agreed to give that responsibility to the Board of Health and relinquish those funds for the Board of Health to make decisions, then the committee, I guess the committee would have to be an advisory committee to the Board of Health, and we would advise how we would want to see the money spent based on what we've done. So, again, this is not in stone or anything, but what triggered all of this was my sending the RFP to Jim for his review.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's for me, it's really hard to make a qualitative, judgment about how, I don't know, burdensome this would be, because it's, because it's in its maturation stages. We don't really know how it's going to turn out in this sense. Which I mean, if this was a program and the only thing that you were doing was distributing Narcan, it could be very, very straightforward. If people we're coming forward with innovative ideas about how to address addiction, and, you know, there's a committee out there who's evaluating whether or not they should get a grant, and then overseeing it, and all the things that are associated with that is a whole nother level of responsibility and sophistication in how you monitor it and criteria you're making decisions about whether or not to get, you know, so it's really hard from the distance I am about that, or where it is in this stage, you know, to say there's a right way or wrong way to do it. But it may be that if we accept the responsibility to do it, that we do it, you know, we just don't bite off more than we can chew, basically, and do things that there are good models for, that there are people out there who, you know, if you give them the money, they have a long track record, and because we want to put the money to use.
Right.
And at the same time, you know, as Tanya said, you know, we don't have the resources, you know, as, you know, for example, we do with the community septic program. We have a dedicated person who does all that, and but again, in a certain sense, that's very cut and dried, because it generates septic plans, and Matt knows how to, you know, it's not as open-ended potentially as battling opioid addiction. So I guess my just advice would be go into this with if we're going to do it, you know, with very controlled and modest expectations, you know, in year one as to how this is going to work until we really get our feet wet.
Matt, you want to chime in?
Well, I guess the plan that, you know, we talked about with bringing possibly Paul over for X amount of hours a week to help with the reporting, the bills, the administrative burden of it, is really the only way it can work. I mean, it can be any person that, but preferably someone with experience and knowledge, such as Olive. But other than that, there's much like, you know, the town administrator is saying that they don't have the resources to do anything. They don't have the manpower. Neither do we. And we're all overloaded over there to the nth degree. So I would just, I'd kind of be right now until we get a clear idea of, you know, how the committee's going to go, and if the select board's going to even entertain possibly asking the Board of Health to take it over. I would just kind of wait and see how that shakes out before the board makes a decision.
Yeah, well, I think for the board to agree to take it on, there needs to be a really clear written sort of charge of what the expectations are from the select board, and then we will either agree or not agree, or propose modifications, but it's got to be pretty clear, I think. And you know, if there's a proposal around using getting more administrative funds, and sort of what the expectations of the person, the administrative role is, and so on. So, you know, I know you have really done a lot of yeoman's labor on bringing this to life, and I really appreciate that, because the town needed that. But I think the discussion with the select board will be really illuminating.
Well, and Craig is on the committee and he's on the select board,
Oh,
so
okay.
he has
Yeah.
the perspective of both sides, and
Mhm.
he's aware of this, because we talked about it in our remote meeting yesterday.
Okay.
So, you know, and I wasn't expecting the board to vote on anything
Right.
today.
Yeah,
I just thought it was really important that you were aware of, and the board is aware of, that this idea
Right.
from the town administrator has come up because I presented them with a plan for looking for proposals.
Right.
And so, you know, and we're talking about, for people in the community to be aware of, right now, we're sitting with over $317,000 that's in a special account for the opioid settlement funds. The projection by 2038 is over $1 million in funds. And if we do not manage this well, we could lose the funding.
So there, I mean, there is a, precedent from what happened with the collaborative in terms of the money from the collaborative funding, administrative support for the program.
Well, but it would be, so the settlement funds would either reimburse the collaborative, or Olive, there would be a role that she would fill based on what the survey has shown we need, like education. Education came up in all the people that we surveyed.
Mm-hmm.
There was all this stuff about education and stigma. Olive could run with that and spend time and energy in focusing on education and anti-stigma campaign in Westport, right? So, but it would be almost like saying a day a week, 2 days a week, Olive would focus on the opioid settlement fund, but the settlement fund should be either reimbursing the collaborative,
right,
or would be directly paid to the Board of Health to pay for all of it. There has to be some way to do
Her time would be coded directly to the opioid funds. The collaborative couldn't pay at all because there's a funding source that exists,
Right.
and it wouldn't be able to pay for that when there's an existing funding source that is approved to pay for it.
Right. Okay. Well, there's a lot of, there's some practical issues, but the bigger issue is who's gonna maintain the responsibility? Either the select board will,
Yeah.
and you are the advisory committee as you always have been, or they will, if they wanna consider another alternative, then they have to make a proposal to us to say, we would like you to take this on, and we'd have to say, under these conditions, kind of thing, I think is the way we would proceed.
and there has to be some acknowledgement, whatever, however we, like if we're fortunate enough to get Olive and, to work on this, it still is gonna fall back, I assume, on Matt at some level to manage it. Do you know what I mean? There has to be, she's gonna be the staff person, not, and if I was that person, I would wanna be able to go to somebody to talk about what I'm gonna do and to get, what managers do with staff, So it's even in that scenario, it's not a free ride, for Matt or whoever maybe in the future he would be able to delegate it to.
So there's a lot of,
Yeah.
considerations to make sure documented if the select board chooses to pursue that avenue.
Matt, were you gonna say something? You look like you wanted to say something.
I'm just gonna say that because I did the importance of the program and for the town, it'd be minimal burden unless something, we really ran with this and picked up. But I thought about, what was this gonna put on my plate, and I'm willing to put in the extra time to do it. It's not a big deal to, sit with all of it. It'd be minimal. I think that she's pretty adept and good at this stuff, so.
Absolutely.
Well, and the other thing is, I don't know whether I can still be the chair of the advisory committee if it gets placed on the board, but I would certainly be the lead for helping with all of that too, because it is, again, I see the importance of having this money and using it wisely to help people. It's all about helping people in the community. And we have this money, I don't want to lose it.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't want to lose
It
this
would
money.
be silly. It would be.
Okay, well, we need to move on. I think we'll skip well, not skip, we'll postpone the other business items until after our 4:30 discussion, which I will invite Cecilia and Rob Delvadio. Come on up. You can have a seat right here. No, just sit right here. Let's keep this informal. We have received a copy of your letter. Oh, I forgot to put mine.
Want to read this one?
Oh,
We all
yeah.
forgot to
Okay,
put it.
Sorry, we pressed on.
I'll pick it
Sound
up.
okay? Okay.
That's fine. It's fine. Their own direction.
So what I thought I'd do is just let you present what you've given us your letter, but explain the circumstances why you're here today, and what you're looking for.
Sure.
Well, we are like many people in this town, only finding out about the new regulations that seems to be trying to model itself after the Cape.
I think it's about the denitrate.
We're
For
looking
septic.
at, yes, denitrate for we're looking to put in an ADA compliant ADU for our son who is disabled. And it's on 4.3 acres. However, we are not concerned about that now. We're just trying to get some answers to understand how this all came about and where it's going. And it's not making a lot of sense in terms of the timelines. I found out about, I never would have, all this stuff, House Bill 887, how that may affect what you've ruled on. A lot of this seems to have been done during COVID, but then I'm finding that the timeline on this was 2023, 24, and even more recently updating the Mass DEP rules. Then I look at the Mass DEP nitrogen sensitive areas map, and it's the Cape, and only the Cape. Yes, we are possibly, and I'm very happy, we're very happy, we understand how important the rivers are and how really necessary to this town it is, and I'm happy to see that the area around us has improved dramatically. But I did want to mention, it's interesting to note that during COVID, everywhere the nitrite numbers went up. I wonder why. Because we're all back in our homes, using our septic systems more. Although, and I'll let you talk in a minute, it seems to me from what we found talking with friends who are engineers and septic stuff and other knowledgeable people on this, it's the phosphorus that's the real issue, and the geese and the ducks are a problem more, and I feel bad for the farmers. It seems like you're attacking an issue on what you can do, not necessarily the best model. And the thing that concerns us as homeowners, and a lot of the people I think I'm talking to, is it uses electricity, $50 more a month. That makes no sense to us. With AI coming and using more and more electrical, the grid is already overpowered, and we have, it's not proven technology. That's the big thing. We haven't. That's what I would ask. You said earlier, looking at a good model. Maybe we need to look at a good model and can we wait and see how things go with Cape? How well do these new ecosystems really work? Because I'm hearing a lot of things about, we don't know. That's why we have to do this MASSTC regulations of checking on it. So there's where it comes from.
There's a little bit.
There's a few pounds of things in there.
Yeah.
I apologize.
A few things to perhaps clarify your understanding on. So I know one of the things you talked about is the process we undertook. This was for the regulation, and there's a lot to that. This really came about in part with the targeted integrated water management plan that was developed for the town of Westport.
I read it. Yeah.
And what their recommendations were. And so this comes out of a plan that's specific to Westport, and addressing a nitrogen problem. As you know, septic systems are a big source of nitrates, and Westport, as you probably also know, has not moved forward with sewers in any part of town. I believe you're on the River Road or down that way.
No, you're on
Har-
Harvard.
You're never gonna get septic down there.
No.
It's
No,
not gonna
no, it's
happen,
not gonna
right?
happen, right.
So we have to address the load from septic systems as one source. That's what's under our control. Other bodies in town may be able to address other issues. The Ag Commission for Farmers and fertilizers,
Right,
thank you.
right.
And so on. I'm just gonna also segue for a second. Phosphorus is a problem in freshwater. It is not an issue, it's not an issue in saltwater or tidal rivers. Or it's not an issue, but that's not the driving force for water quality impairment in saltwater systems. So the process we underwent, this was meetings with the targeted, mostly the planning board was the lead entity for the targeted integrated water management plan. We spent a long time thinking about how to target. We're not doing what the Cape is doing, which is driven by DEP, which says everybody has to upgrade.
Right.
We targeted where can we have the most impact in the most effective way. And the two areas that we addressed are cesspools, because cesspools are
Yeah,
ancient technology.
Right.
They don't address, they don't
Right.
do any
Yep.
treatment at all. And we have probably in Westport, probably about 1,000 cesspools.
Yeah, that's a
Right.
shame.
Yeah.
So that's a big piece of it. The other piece that we decided to focus on was new construction, because people are, if they're building a home, it's the opportunity to
It's logical,
do an advanced septic system rather than making people do upgrades. And because even the best technology, which, there are improvements going on, but even the best technology is not as good as a septic treatment plant, like in where you have sewers in
Right.
Fall River or whatever. But it's so that any new addition, any new load increases the amount of nitrates going into the ground, going into drinking water, going into the river. So we wanted to minimize the impact of new construction, because that seemed like this is an opportunity. People are putting in a septic system now. We're not saying, oh, you have a functioning septic system, you got to rip it up and upgrade it. So that's why we chose those two target areas for the first step. The targeted integrated water management plan has a number of other a number of other recommendations, but this was the chunk we chose to start with. In the terms of the process for the regulation, we did extensive public outreach, press releases. We did a public information session with science.
When was this?
That was October 7th, 2020. We did a webinar. We had a science expert from the Buzzards Bay Coalition, George Hoyfelder from Mass Tech.
In 2020.
2020.
Yeah, during COVID, most people were sick or so frightened.
Well, that's why it was online, a
Right.
webinar.
Right.
You didn't have to come in person.
Right.
And Bob Daler from the planning board. So we did, and that's more than what is required for a public regulatory process, but we wanted to
Yeah.
make sure. We also took public feedback, public comment, to both from that session and the public hearing, which was held on October 29th.
These were in that long report that was done by these people that were listed with the members present and
I'm not sure what report you're
the
referring
one
to.
you hired, the client K, it began with K. Sorry, I
Oh,
don't have it.
Kleinfelder was the consulting firm that did the targeted integrated water
Right,
management
and
plan.
so these meetings that you had were with them,
No,
listed in that. So
those
how
are
many-
separate. There were meetings,
I
there
guess
were,
what I wanted to ask is how many people actually participated in 2020?
I don't know the number off the top of my head. You mean in our webinar? I don't think when you do, I don't know, John, can you tell me,
if there's a public session, do you document how many people have tuned in?
I can't on TV. If it's on YouTube, it tells me.
Okay, so I can't tell you that number because it was on.
Oh, it's through the
It's
cable,
through the
it's through the
cable.
cable, which is,
10.
that's cord dependent, correct? So you have to be signed up for the
In
cable
this
system.
town, we need Spectrum
Right.
cable to get what we broadcast.
Cable TV, or is it available via streaming?
Both. We stream all our meetings on YouTube.
Okay.
I don't know how it was happening.
Back
I
in
mean,
20
there's a lot in 2020.
2020.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know
crazy.
how it happened. So I'm not sure I can give you a number, but it was pretty robust. We certainly got a lot of feedback from engineers, from residents, interested parties. I'm sure if you did a public records request, you could get, because all that was public document. We then developed a FAQ kind of document to respond to questions that were where there was confusion, and we drafted revisions to the proposed regulation based on some of the feedback that we got. We voted in a public meeting, so we had a public hearing, same
Right.
format. We voted to approve on the regulation on November 23rd, 2020, with an effective date of February 1st, so that people would have time to prepare. And we did get a lot of plans that came in for new construction before the deadline, so they wouldn't have to do D-night. We then also offered a Q&A session particularly targeted to engineers on January 21st, 2021, to answer questions about the administration of the regulation. So we did a pretty, way more elaborate process than just a hearing.
So one question.
And we took in a lot of feedback and responded to it.
So did you guys discuss the 5-year option versus the 20-year option?
Okay, that is completely different. That's something that's the DEP watershed permit management plan.
Okay.
When they were doing public hearings or public listening sessions around the state, around Southeast, around that, they originally proposed to include from Westport
Right.
all the way to the Cape.
Right.
We actually successfully argued not to be subject to that regulation because it is more onerous than,
Right.
more strict than what we had, because we had taken proactive steps to establish a regulation to target what we thought were the highest, sort of biggest bang for the buck,
Right.
and that we were, unlike many other towns, we were proactively addressing the nitrogen load, TMDL,
Yeah.
total maximum daily load nitrogen problem in the Westport River.
Sure.
And that argument was successful, and they restricted their permit process and that, what you're talking about, to the Cape. So the South Coast communities are not subject to that. So it is not relevant or applicable to Westport.
Okay. Okay. And in developing the new guidelines, did you guys consider other approaches besides kind of what I would call septic container systems, say treatment at the field level? Have you looked at any of those systems?
Can you just
So
explain them?
obviously nitrites in the water system it's not restricted to this part of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Florida is an example where they have high water table, and so this is a very big problem for them as well. I think now it might be more freshwater. They're concerned about the Everglades there, and I don't know what the saltwater mix is in the Everglades, because I know some of it is coastal and so on. But so they've been dealing it with kind of a similar thing where you put a biomass material, which is what the septic systems use. That's kind of the active material. They put it as a layer below the field. So it's a substrata layer. So now it perks down through that. So it's just using gravity. It's not using electricity.
and it's an alternative.
Well, layer cake systems are something like that,
Yeah.
using wood chips, and they have not been successful. They were piloted, and in fact, I think the Buzzards Bay Coalition got a grant, and there were 6 residents in Westport who stepped up to pilot that, and the results were not, they're not any better than a standard Title V septic system. So, but that whole innovative technology process is not under our control. We do not dictate to homeowners, engineers, or anybody else what type of technology they use. The approval process and the oversight of alternative technologies is all done at DEP at the state level. They have a piloting level, provisional, general use, and what's called remedial use. So there's 4 categories. For instance, the layer cake was a pilot, and it required a lot more oversight and monitoring and so on in order to prove its worth, its success. And so those systems basically failed to prove that they were better than standard septic technology. There are a number of systems that are effective and achieve a much lower level. The 19 milligrams is the level we set. There are some technologies that are trying to achieve a level of 10 milligrams per liter. But there are some more proven technologies that do, that are relatively effective. We in my own property, we installed one, and we've been really pleased with the results there. But, and we did not see a $50 per month increase in electric on ours,
Can I just ask one other, so the hold harmless agreement, I think as a homeowner and as someone who's simply trying to, I mean, this is supposed to be the greatest community I was told in the state. Our town has the most elderly people here than any other town, which is kind of amazing to me, but there's so many people on limited means, people who want to bring in family members who are disabled or elderly. When it feels to us as though you've painted it you take one brush to paint everyone with, and it's nothing is individually looked at. I'm not, we don't feel, I don't understand the hold harmless in sense of this is new technology. The homeowner for 2 years pays, I was told $1,000 a year for the inspections. Is that true?
So it depends on the technology you choose and the provider that you choose.
But see, now wait a minute. When you said that earlier, I went into the Board of Health the other day, and they were like, oh, you have to have only these systems. So you said you can choose anything, but it sounded like, no, you're only allowed Norweco or, Simulaire is the ones that they seem to be.
Those are the most
Norweco or
commonly,
Simulaire.
it's really the engineer will help you decide which technology. But we have a performance standard of 19 milligrams per liter.
Okay,
and some of
makes
them,
sense. I can understand, yeah. I've
some
read
of them
in many
meet that.
places.
Consistently, and then there are other technologies that are in the testing phase or provisional. And I've mentioned there are some that are in this testing phase that do better than 19. They're down to 10, but we felt 19 was the sort of the accepted technology level. And so in terms of we have heard complaints about so there's 2 pieces to the maintenance of this. One is the regular operations and maintenance that you need to make sure it continues to operate because it's an active system as opposed to a passive leach field. And the second part, which we require, and actually we have a proposal to scale that back, is the testing the total nitrogen from the effluent, from what comes out of the system, to make sure that it's meeting the standard that we establish. And that is expensive, the testing. And we'll be discussing later in the meeting the proposal to require it for the first 2 years, but after that, once established a pattern of success, that it doesn't need to continue being tested at that level.
How many years
So-
do you see that up for? I mean,
I'm sorry?
How many years do you think that will take to see a pattern that you're
Well, what we're proposing is 2 years
starting when?
upon installation of the system.
Of everybody's system. Okay, so that will continue through, though. You will,
Each
it's not like-
individual person's
Yeah.
systems installed.
Okay.
So for,
That's
Right.
what I
you know,
heard.
depending on when it
Right.
gets installed,
Right.
2 years from the.
How many have you found so far that don't work?
I don't offhand know that number.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
You're here because you're planning on
Well,
adding an ADU.
We're hoping to.
Not at, so it's a separate, our plan that we were hoping was to put it in the front half, right on the line of Old Harbor, across the street's Little Compton. We're at the highest point, very, very high up on the hill. It levels out there. It's the highest point in Westboro, we were told. It's 400 feet down to the well. This ADU would share the well that we have that was up front, because the people that bought us before were gonna put their house up front, and we put our house back so that we could have a walkout. So we put its own septic system in. Okay. We did have Lenny Potter come out and do a test, and it perked, and it's fine, and it's a flat field. And if it was a separate, if we put a small road in, and made it have frontage or whatever, could be a separate building that could be sold on its own, I guess, and probably work okay. But it would be new construction, as long as it falls under new construction. I just find this whole thing ironic, because the ADU, for 5 years, we've been looking for a place so that once we pass, he has a place to stay that's stable. And I know this isn't the real answer, but it's at least getting him closer to us in terms of being able to manage him. It's a lot of work, and it's only gonna get worse. So people who have these needs, it makes the ADU really tough. It makes it a lot more complicated.
Right.
So,
I don't know your personal circumstances, and I don't know the size of your septic system now, but one of the things, and we're discussing this as part of our regs changes to clarify around ADUs, because there's, as you know, the regulations have changed, and DEP has issued specific guidance around septic requirements so if you're proposing to install a new septic system for your ADU, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but to add, let's presume a 1-bedroom, but you eliminate a bedroom in your existing house so that you maintain the same level of
we have a
septic.
4-bedroom and we have a 3-bedroom house with
Okay.
no opportunity for any other bedrooms.
No. What
and
I'm
it's
saying
a
is,
4-bedroom septic.
you have a 4-bedroom septic currently. Then,
You could tie the ADU into the existing septic
No, we
if
can't.
it's possible.
That's not practical.
It's not practical.
No,
Yeah,
practical.
yeah.
Location is too
Yeah,
far.
yeah.
It's,
Okay.
and it's.
And it's our understanding that would require upgrading the existing system.
Well, it depends, if the existing system if it passes a Title V inspection and you tie it into it, the only thing you would have to do is put a separate tank coming out of the ADU into the existing leaching field. So we just put another septic tank that would catch the solids and stuff coming out of the ADU. We wouldn't have to do the upgrade with the D-night or anything, but only if that was, practical and that would work for
Right.
you.
Right.
so, you have some specific circumstances that,
I noticed most people who apply and look at your minutes are doing additions or above garage or other, not doing this sort of thing.
yeah. Well, I think there's lots of creativity around ADU, and I think it's a really good thing to add, housing capacity. But there are ways, in many circumstances, people can maintain the existing number of bedroom or capacity of the septic system and not have to put in a new system or whatever. And your circumstances are not
Unfortunately.
conducive to that. So you're in a different category than most people. who might be considering adding an ADU component.
Right.
So, I appreciate that it's complicating your planning process, but I think you're right. Any regulation is, it can't be customized to every specific circumstance. It is a blanket. There is a variance provision in our regulations so that we can address in certain circumstances, if there's a hardship or there's, a legitimate justification to make for an exception to a regulation. We do have that provision, so that's something that we do actively incorporate in our regulations to try to address when there's an unusual circumstance that, So I think I'm pretty confident that we did a very robust public education and process that was sensitive to the feedback that we got, that we based it on the science from the integrated targeted water management plan to help the town address a town-wide, a state and federal requirement, and that we were being very responsible about it. So I feel pretty confident that we have done a pretty good job, and that we are still responsive to concerns that come up as we gain experience. So, for instance, trying to balance the cost issue with the making sure that technology is working and that it's managed well. So we're looking at reducing the testing requirement. We're looking at clarifying the ADU requirement in our regulation. That's part of what's on our agenda. So I feel pretty, I'm willing to defend very strongly the process we've undertaken, the basis in which we've done the regulation. I think one of the things, just to be clear, because it was something you said about the Barnstable County system where we, that the reports go to, is not, they don't do the inspections.
Okay.
It's you hire, the O&M provider is the one who does operations and maintenance provider, the service contractor. Like, you have somebody come service your, your heat pump or your sump pump or whatever. It's the same thing. And so it's you choose, and they inspect and make sure, they monitor and make sure everything's, and that report then goes to Barnstable County for tracking. They keep track, and so because they have a big data. For us to do it, we just don't have the
They were
resources.
the ones I found information along with the local one, saying how great the nitrite levels are doing now. I mean, and the thing that I noticed that bothered me about that report from the Klein, whatever their name is, I'm sorry, I have a blind.
Kleinfelder.
But that was, they used very old numbers, up to 2015, I think. And it wasn't very recent for what's been going on with what the state's looking at. And so when I compare, it's like, wow, we've already achieved I will say it's nice to see. The levels are much better.
So
That's a complicated situation,
I'm sure it changes.
in itself.
Yeah.
Because the way that the TMDL is done, I think from the state and federal, kind of actually looks at the sub-watersheds. Each sub-watershed has its own target, and so we have been doing well as an overall system relative to what the...
I was looking at the ones locally from the WMRA.
Yeah. Well, and they show what the target. They show what the targets. So the process was that there were target stations that were set up with numbers that were to achieve compliance with, but it's not totally clear whether DEP is relying on those to achieve compliance, and once we meet those, once the river meets those, that we met compliance. Because I think that their view of it is that there is a certain load, and that is really what the measure of compliance is. And those loads are broken down by sub-watersheds. And so it's great that we're doing that. And I think the objective, because I was part of the group that represented the Board of Health on the integrated plan, and we talked about it, and part of it is, well, let's not make it worse. You know, we can't really go back and fix everybody's septic system, but at least we can reduce the future load from getting higher and higher, so that at the point that we have to address it, it's going to be that much more complicated to do it. That was really the driving philosophy of that. But in any event, and just to say, I think everybody has been caught up in the impacts of inflation and shortage of supply, which has increased the hard costs, the equipment costs, and the service costs from the costs that we were looking at when this was initially adopted, which was to try to, as Tanya said, kind of get a hold of it, not just ignore it until someone, the state finally came and said, you have to do something about this. And we had spent 5 years just putting more and more nitrogen into the system. And I think the other point to make about the 5-year and the 20-year, just to understand that, is that I spent a whole lot of my career in DEP before I retired and came here. And it was a very clever approach to how to get communities to sign up. So there's a Massachusetts provision which says if the state mandates you have to do something, then they have to pay for it. So what they set up is a system that says, okay, everybody has to repair their septic system, to upgrade their septic system, every homeowner within 5 years, right? That was it, okay? So we're not going to make the state do it. We're going to put the burden on every homeowner. And we're totally septic, so that would have been, and it was an enormous cost. Or the town can choose to take responsibility and do a bigger plan. Of course, it's not a mandate then. The town chose to do it, rather than put the burden on all individual homeowners to do something which was totally impossible. You have probably 16,000, 15,000 systems to fix in 5 years.
Yeah,
It was hundreds of millions of dollars.
well, it's impossible.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
So they said, here's your choice. Do it impossible, or
Yeah.
and that's how it went.
But that's what applies to the Cape. It does not
That
apply to
applies.
West.
But then I think, right, and again, I think, and part of it was that DEP, besides the response that communities like ours led, they realized this is way more than the agency could. They just bit off more than they could chew, just in terms of the number of communities that they were looking. Like if everyone had come in, it would swamp them. So because the Cape is unique in a number of ways, because they had been trying to solve this problem for years because of the economic impact it was having on the communities. And there was a lot of support to do this because the business community was afraid that all the harbors were just going to fill up, become overly contaminated. So there was a more receptive audience out there, and the Cape is a big proving ground. But, and just say one more thing, which is that, and the reason that this came about was because of a lawsuit. Right? And so it's out there, okay? I don't think And at some point, again, trying to get ahead, they'll come back and, you know, be knocking on our door. So this was,
Trying to anticipate,
let's-
I understand.
We're
I understand.
we're trying
you know,
very
so we're
hard
trying to
be
do it. And
responsible
it's unfortunate
balanced.
that, it's unfortunate for homeowners that the costs have gone up the way they have. And,
We thought volume would reduce the cost, you know,
It's
instead
not,
of.
there's,
Supply isn't
yeah,
there, though.
there's not enough people to do it.
yeah, but.
And then I think for, on the homeowner side, it's beyond the sticker shock. There's the shock of something that's a pretty basic system, right? Flows in, gravity takes care of the rest. Now we've introduced all this technology. We've introduced pumps and fans and all this stuff, and
Right.
computer control.
3-year warranty.
And as somebody who's been involved with technology for many years, it always fails. You know, when does it not break down? And that environment is going to be very caustic, that those motors are operating in. So, okay, what am I going to get out of a lifespan before that stuff's getting yanked out and put back in? And then it has the sense of, are we on a little bit of a moving target? So this is the new accepted, oh, your thing failed, well, now you're going to have to upgrade it to this because that's the new standard. So
Well, I mean, DEP has said 10 is the new standard. We have 19 as the standard.
Right. And so that it just becomes this kind of thing that keeps shifting.
Yeah.
But even then, let's say the standards stay the same, just the operating systems within these tanks are going to continuously turn over. And that, oh, well, that component that we used to be able to plop in there, that doesn't exist anymore. So now you can't get it.
Yeah.
So,
We see that
Yeah.
in cars and all sorts of
exactly,
technology. Absolutely,
exactly.
yeah.
Take it
Yeah.
forward.
So, but thank you
We do
for the
appreciate
chance to answer some of our questions.
Things and, yes.
Sure. You know, I understand that if this, you know, so all of a sudden you have a lot on your plate, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, wait a minute. But
So-
I think we're really trying to be balanced.
Well, that's
I hope
without
we
question.
answered your questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you have more, feel free to
Great.
reach out again.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye. All right, so we're gonna return to the agenda. Well, apropos, local septic regulation proposed updates. We had talked about this at our working meeting, and I just put something out there, just for the initial discussion. And I hope you guys had a chance to look at it, and if you've got critiques, now's the time.
I did, that's
I
why
did.
I asked about the ADU,
Yeah,
was if they were connecting it to the same system, then
yeah.
it would
I
have
mean,
been.
all the scenarios, I mean, we included in the packet the Title V guidance, which is pretty, you know, a lot of scenario-driven examples. So I was thinking that maybe that was one of the motivators for them to come in. It's like, ooh, you know, we're possibly doing an ADU. So turns out that was right. So I'm trying to keep it simple. So if it's connected to its own new system, or if there's an increase in the actual or design flow to an existing system. And this is not to preclude the existing Title V requirements, like the second tank, for instance, or whatever. But since we didn't really, you know, this new construction definition didn't contemplate ADUs, I just thought this would, as simple as possible, proposed definition addition to clarify on ADUs. So I'm looking for feedback.
It looked fine to me. I don't know if you want, you have or at the bottom. Was that to replace the entire?
Oh, that's for section 16. There's two, yeah, I'll explain that in a second. I'm
Okay,
just,
so
let's
we're
just
still
talk
on
about section 10.
Okay.
Melanie, are you okay with?
Yeah, when I went back to, it actually, I think the new language is fine. I got kind of caught up in the, a little bit in another part of it, but maybe we can, it had to do with the fact that in our regulation, we don't kind of define what a facility is, which Title V kind of defines a facility. And the reason that I thought it became relevant and a slight is that where this says the construction of a new building for which an occupancy permit is required, and I think the way Title V, and that I guess kind of presumes that there is, that building is actually going to generate flow. You know, that they have either, you know, and I know this is really off tangent, but since we were messing with it, I just brought it up. But
well, let's so
I'm fine with this, and I guess just had a collateral question. So if someone has a 1-bedroom ADU, then and it's separate from it's independent. Is it designed to accommodate 2 bedrooms? Or does that go back to that kind of minimum, the
No.
only exception?
You don't have to,
You can do 1.
you can do one.
Okay.
okay. I will just to be clear, I think I don't have it. Our definition section says, you know, we adopt the Title V definitions. I think. Pull that out.
Oh yeah.
So
well, it's just
facility would be that, you know, that we're not changing the facility definition.
right.
In other words,
No, we're
so
not,
we would
right.
adopt, that's what would apply.
Yeah. So, because because I thought we had kind of separated that out. So let's see. So just to, so the septic system is defined as a system of sanitary disposal of sanitary sewage below the ground surface of a facility.
Mm-hmm.
And then they define facility as anything that's connected to a septic system. And so, and I think that's, and then our definition, we use the word facility in the except where a board determines that it's feasible to connect a facility to blah, 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 that they have to install a nitrogen reducing system. And this is just like a practical, I guess just asking Matt, are there buildings that are constructed that require occupancy permits that do not require, or that would require an occupancy permit but would not require any action from us because there's no wastewater being disposed out of it, but it would still require an occupancy permit?
So I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think the only time an occupancy permit is required if it's like, if it's a living space, kitchen, bathroom, bedroom.
Okay, all right, then I won't worry about it.
But like for instance, like some sheds, if they're, you know, over 200 square feet, I forget what it is in the building code, I think it's over 200 square feet, and it's just independent, just a shed, it doesn't require.
Because I thought that maybe it was because, you know, that it was, you know, and that they get the occupancy permit when they get the sign off from electrical and all the other stuff that they need, so they have to get all those permits to actually use the
Right, you have to, so you
You
have
know.
to get, if there's plumbing, you have to sign off by plumbing, electrical.
Right, but it's
so
the
on and so
plumbing part of
forth.
it. But anyway, it's not worth beating the bush around.
Okay. So, moving on to section 16, this is sort of what I was, we were talking about, we had talked about in our working meeting. So there were two ways I thought of addressing this. One is to just change that last sentence to not the at a minimum, just say the Board of Health shall require the semi-annual for the first 2 years after installation in order to evaluate system compliance with the performance standards. So it basically says it's a 2-year requirement, period. The or is rewording the whole section slightly to achieve this, presumably achieve the same outcome, but maybe clearer. So it's either or are the two versions of what I'm proposing. But the intent, I think we agreed at our working meeting, is to have the 2 years of testing requirement and then not have them have to come to us to make a case for lowering the requirement or anything like that. We just make that the default.
I thought it was 2 years, and it had to be an average of those 2 years, 19 milligrams per liter or less, in order for them to eliminate the 2 years of testing, because we wanted to make sure that the system was functioning over those 2 years.
Right.
So is that in there then?
Well, in order to evaluate system compliance with the performance standards. So it's there, and we still have the opportunity to require, like if they don't meet the requirements, we're going to say under, the additional maintenance and monitoring that they have to continue testing.
Mhm.
But that would be, the onus would be on us, not on the homeowner, to, so that. I know that we have other topics we want to address in a working meeting, so I think we're losing steam here. So if we want to, if you want more time to think about that, we can take it up and work on it if there's some changes that are needed in a working meeting, and then schedule a hearing to adopt the proposed changes. I don't know how people are feeling.
That's fine with me. I don't know about Phil. He's engrossed.
Oh, no,
The suggestion is that we don't make any vote now. We take it to the working meeting and tweak it some more.
I guess I was thinking as to whether or not, but I'm fine either way. I mean, I think the outcome is fine. I don't know that. I think it's good that we're communicating a message that we're only going to require 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
and so that is, and I was just thinking about it from whether it accomplishes that, from not from a practical implementation, but from a messaging perspective, I guess. That's what I was
Right, well, this is
thinking.
a legalistic,
Yeah,
because
I
it's the
know,
regulation,
yeah,
and
yeah.
we can
Mhm.
do outreach that is more, shall we say, user-friendly, or, sort of for the
Mhm.
general public,
Yeah,
because this language is, I'm putting on the lawyer hat,
yeah,
Phil,
yeah,
come
yeah,
on.
yeah. I mean, so it's not saying, so we're not saying that we can require additional maintenance and monitoring if the system is underperforming. It's much more open-ended than that, right? Because we can just choose to say, you know what, we've decided everybody has to do another 2 years because we think it's reasonable and necessary, rather than one that says, if you fail, we may do something. We may.
Well, I
So.
would trust the judgment of the board, certainly
Mhm.
this board, to determine that they would not abuse the reasonable and necessary language.
Right, right.
And
Well, I guess we
you-
don't know anyway, do we? I mean, we're not getting the test results back.
We can go
We
on.
can go on
We can
that-
go on and look.
Oh, okay, they're
They
still,
don't
they're
give it to us
collecting.
anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
So we go
okay.
on and look and we can see. I would just suggest that we leave it as, it's an average of the 2 years, and then the board may require additional testing, rather than just cut it off and say 2 years and that's good. I mean, we want the systems to perform. Or we want to know that the systems are performing.
Yeah. Well, then that would say you would, I think it's clearer in this or version, the second version.
Yeah.
So you like the second version better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It was just, when you're doing a regulatory change, you try to minimize the actual words that change.
Yeah.
But I'm fine with whiting out, like redlining the entire section and just reworking it. I think it's clear. I think it's clear. That's why I did the proposed alternate,
Right. Mm-hmm.
version. But
I think the or section works good.
okay. So so there's two options. We can think about it some more at the next working meeting and then schedule a public hearing, or we can say, okay, we're comfortable with these proposed changes and schedule a public hearing at this point. I'm open a minute.
I'm comfortable with the changes. I don't know about Mr. Fell, who has all the DEP
No,
and
I
legal
mean,
brain that he works when he looks at all these policies.
I mean, I didn't have a chance to read this before, but I think if you two would both prefer the second version of it, I don't have a problem going ahead and moving forward with it.
Okay, do we want to, I don't think this hearing would take long. I think we could do it in a regular meeting if we wanted to, or we could schedule a separate meeting. I think it'll be very short.
So we
I
have
mean, like have a meeting and then close it and open it, like make a public meeting, that's that part of
Well, the
You
select
schedule-
board do public hearings in
Yeah,
their
have a
meetings all the
public
time.
hearing, then
it?
close it, then go into open
Yeah,
session.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they even do it that formal at the select board, but anyways.
Would it be okay if we kind of just give us from now to the next meeting to just so I can look at this and just think about it a little bit?
Sure.
Sure, yeah.
And we can, I'll come back at the next meeting.
I just, I'm gonna be out of town the first couple weeks in October. So, where are we? So our next regular meeting is the 15th. So we'll just put this on the agenda for the 15th to kind of, okay.
that sounds good to me.
All right, good, thank you for your feedback on that. And I think we had one more.
It's board member
Board
updates.
member updates.
I've already done mine.
Okay.
I don't really have anything. to
Okay.
talk about.
Well then, yeah, I nothing particularly new. I finished up my first round of the unknowns research. We can talk about that more, but I think we should, go to a working meeting probably at some point and see where we are with stormwater, with, what else do we have going on?
Eventually, we're gonna get back to the well rig.
Okay. Are we ready to schedule? Why don't we wait and see what happens at the next select board meeting, because that might require us to spend some time thinking about things. So why don't we just put on the 15th on the agenda, scheduling a working meeting somewhere in
Okay.
Okay.
the future. Okay. Then we have a regular meeting on the 29th. Okay, any other agenda items? anything we didn't anticipate or topics for the next regular meeting, we just raised two.
That does.
I'll just remind the board that Tuesday afternoon to Friday, I'll be off at a conference, so I'll be out at a conference all next week,
Next week, okay.
for the most part.
All right,
Okay.
anything else? I should say,
Want the appointments?
huh?
Did you have appointments on the agenda?
We had one appointment, that was
Yeah,
it.
just the four
Just the
Well, we
four-
already
the
just
appointment.
did.
Yeah, we finished that.
Mine had, cabinet neck and you were there.
I think you have an old agenda.
Evidently.
We'll make sure you get the current agenda so you can align to your notes. The Westport River Watershed Alliance is sponsoring an electronics recycling on September 17th from 9 to 11, I believe. Is that correct, Phil? Behind Town Hall, just a reminder for that. And again, we're planning household hazardous waste collection for the end of March, and more details to come on that. Okay, anything else?
No, Madam Chair, so I move that we adjourn this meeting at 5:30.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous, thank you.